watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
To another episode of Focus on Germantown. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mayor Mike Palazzolo, and it's my privilege to be your mayor and host. Each month, the focus is on city government, how it provides services, and works with you, our citizens, to make Germantown a great place to live. We have quite a special episode in store for this month. As many of our viewers may already know, the City of Germantown was recently awarded the Excellence Award from the Tennessee Center for Performance Excellence. Today, we'll be sitting down with City Administrator Patrick Lawton as he gives us all the details on this significant achievement and what it means for you, Germantown residents. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mayor. Glad to be here.
Well, what an honor for the city, and you are one of the primary architects of this honor. But help our residents know a little bit about what is TNCPE, all these alphabets like NFL, AFL, all these different things. What is TNCPE?
It can be confusing. TNCPE stands for the Tennessee Center for Performance Excellence. It is actually the state equivalent to the National Malcolm Baldrige Award. And for our viewers who are not sure what the Baldrige Award is, it is the Performance Excellence Award that is awarded to companies, organizations, local governments, hospitals around the country who achieve superior performance in a number of areas. In Tennessee, the Tennessee Center for Performance Excellence is that body that administers the program at the state level.
And how long has that program been in existence?
The Baldrige program itself started in the 80s, and it was developed by President Reagan and his Commerce Secretary, a gentleman named Malcolm Baldrige, at a time when companies, industry organizations in our country probably weren't as competitive as they should be when compared to what was happening across the planet. TNCPE has been around since the early 90s, and again, it is equivalent. It is the same criteria that organizations, large or small, healthcare, manufacturing, education, and now government can compete for to demonstrate their level of expertise in a number of areas in terms of performance improvement and process improvement.
Well, speaking to that, how long has Germantown, the city, been on this journey?
We've actually started this journey in 2010, and the way that came about was many of our viewers might recall the effort for consolidated city-county government. We happened to hear, and you and I attended a number of those Charter Commission meetings, we heard a presentation about Baldrige and how one city in Florida decided to take the principles in Baldrige and apply them to their local government as their operating system, if you will. And the point to the presentation is made by a gentleman named Dr. Don Fisher with the Quality Center here in Memphis was that if you're going to start with world-class organization and try to build those principles into your operating of your city organization or this new government organization, why not start with world-class practices that are tried and true in a number of industries?
Well, Patrick, matter of fact, I mean, why did the city choose this course of action? Why was it important at that time to kind of take a step and kind of recalibrate sometimes, if you will?
Great question, Mayor. The relevance to us at that point, it just happened to coincide post-recession, when we were entering what a lot of people were calling the new normal. And how do we operate post-recession when we were looking at revenue streams and we were looking at a city that was fully annexed? How could we leverage our strengths, understanding what our challenges were, and try to improve and build sustainability into our organization going forward? The principles, the basic building blocks in Baldrige, again, applied at the state level, allowed us to look at a number of our areas. Yes, we were good and an outstanding community up until that point, but what we lacked was processes and procedures to sustain that excellence going forward.
Well, and I think you may have mentioned, after the Great Recession, this new normal appeared. And so cities of our size, of Germantown size, had to really reflect on how we were going to sustain ourselves into the future. We looked at some things in the past, maybe a little bit of a precursor was managed competition.
Right.
Just give the people a little bit of idea of what that was, and it's kind of a Baldrige process in its own right.
It absolutely is. It's a way for our organization to try to be competitive with the private sector in terms of bidding on different products and services that the city might offer. We also began to look at best business practices. We are not a private sector, but that doesn't mean we can't adopt a lot of the best practices that are used in the private sector. In the private sector, you have investors. In local government, you have taxpayers. In the private sector, you have business units. In our case, we have city departments. We have a mayor as opposed to a chief executive officer. But one thing that we all have in common that we realized in our Baldrige journey was, number one, we absolutely do produce a product, and number two, that we have customers, and number three, that we have a profit. Maybe not the monetary kind, but our profit, and you'll see at the end of the show today, our profit translates into outstanding results for our customers.
Well, and the managed competition portion of Baldrige and process, give our residents a couple of examples. The Germantown Athletic Club would be one, and the Germantown Community Library. We always think about doing everything in-house. These are a couple of things that were, I guess, taken out into the private sector in a sense. A great partnership.
It's a great partnership, but I think it begins with understanding a city's work process. What are the things that we can do as a local government? Do we have the input? Do we have the resources? Do we have the personnel? Do we know what our customer base looks like? And if we don't, there are other areas probably that can do that a lot better than we can. And we identified those partners. You talked about the library for one. There are people who do that. That's not a core business for the city. Sanitation collection. As another example, there are companies that can do that and who have already invested into capital that we don't have, who can produce that product and collect that sanitation much more efficient than we probably can.
Well, I agree with that totally. So give us a little bit, in this segment, we got about a minute left, but so the journey's been about 10 years, and so give us a little bit of some steps along the way, how departments have to work with each other.
They absolutely do, and I think in the next segment we'll show up what that model looks like, but it calls for a lot of intergovernmental cooperation. We've developed a number of cross-functional departmental teams. We have individuals in different departments who, because the Baldrige is based on data, and data is knowledge and information, and if you're armed with data, you can go and apply those principles to a number of different departments. For example, our athletic club director is a Six Sigma black belt. Doesn't know anything about fighting fires, but he knows data, and he worked very closely with our fire department in terms of improving response times for both emergency medical and for our fire response as well.
Fascinating. We're going to dig deeper into it here in a moment. We have to throw it to a quick break, but when we come back, we will continue our conversation with Mr. Lawton. Stick with us.
Donating it to Goodwill may be the most incredible of all. Your donations help fund job placement and training for people in your community, which means your stuff can be more powerful than you think. Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to Focus on Germantown. Before the break, City Administrator Patrick Lawton began explaining what sparked the city's interest in going down the Baldridge route. Patrick, give us a little bit of insight about some of the process and the framework of what Baldridge is. A lot of our corporate citizens and CEOs are well attuned to these terms, but our average resident may not. So please kind of give us a little bit of the framework.
Thank you, Mayor. I refer to the Baldridge model, if you will, as that framework and oftentimes as our operating system that we've adopted. Again, Germantown was doing a lot of the right things right, but what we didn't have in place was the processes that link those things together. What Baldridge does when you follow it, and it's exactly what the Tennessee Center for Performance Excellence tracks as well, are 7 major areas. And each one of these areas build upon each other. For example, it talks about the leadership model. Do you have senior leaders fully engaged in your organization? Are they walking the walk and talking the talk in terms of your vision, mission, and core values and core competencies as an organization? It also addresses how do you deal with your strategy? Do you have a corporate strategy and a long-range strategic plan? And also, how do you deal with your customers? Do you even know who your customers are? And that's a very difficult question, I think, for a lot of organizations to answer, particularly in city government. When we talk about city customers, some folks will say, we don't have customers, we have hostages. But actually, we don't. Our customers are our residents, and we need to be able to provide a certain level of service. So those 3 areas in particular, leadership, strategy, and customers, they not only stack on each other, but they're also integrated. That then allows us to focus on our workforce. Do we have the right people in the right place doing the right things? Are they fully engaged as employees? And are they helping to take that strategy, what's most important, our key performance indicators, our key measures, and turning those into reality? And then also how do we operate as an organization? Are we protecting the data that's entrusted to this, and are we using it in the best possible way? The 7th element of all of this is the results. I mentioned that unlike our friends in the private sector, where we don't necessarily focus on a monetary bottom line, our results are exactly that. We have to show, if we're going to be successful as an organization, we have to show positive results. That's our profit. So it's linking all 7 categories together to come up with the operating system and the framework that is Baldridge. We've adopted that in the city of Germantown. The culture now within the city, if you talk to department employees about how they view things, they speak in a different language than we had, say, 10 years ago. We don't even mention the word Baldridge. It's who we are and what we do and how we operate.
Well, we do know in our DNA is excellence every day at the city of Germantown, not just a tagline, but something that our employees practice each and every day so they deliver those premium services to our customers, to our residents. So what's been some of the interaction with this process of almost 10 years in the making at the city? You mentioned that our employees, they don't really speak Baldridgese anymore, but they speak their own language. So how has that worked as far as departments embracing this? And I know you've worked tirelessly on many of the implementation pieces of it, but how's the team embraced all this?
They have, and I want to go back on what you mentioned earlier, Mayor, about excellence every day. And I think excellence every day in our organization, it's a choice that our employees make to bring their best game, their A game to work every day, both personally and professionally, to deliver the best service that they can for our residents. And that translates, and we're going to see, I think, some of the results, for example, in our Net Promoter Score. I guarantee you there are very few companies or local governments in this state, in this area, who are practicing and interested in the Net Promoter Score. And that is, Net Promoter Score is the question you're often asked when you're doing a survey: would you recommend the city of Germantown as a place to live? And our Net Promoter Score is a 76, which exceeds Apple's Net Promoter Score, which exceeds Ritz-Carlton, Net Promoter Score and USA insurance in terms of what our residents feel about that. In terms of how our departments have embraced the Baldrige and the Baldrige principles, every department in the city has a business plan. And one of the first things we ask the department heads to do is we ask them, what is your product? And they have to think about that. What do I do? What is the product that I offer? Everybody provides a product. Once they identify that, we say, okay, what's your customer? Who are you trying to serve? In the police department, it's pretty easy. Our product is public safety. Who are your customers? The residents of the city of Germantown. The tough question is, what are their requirements? What are the requirements of the people who live here of the Germantown Police Department? And our chief, deputy chief, his staff, they actually go out and create focus groups talking to our residents to say, what are your requirements? Well, naturally, it's low crime rate, rapid response times. And so we take that and we build processes around that to meet the customer requirements of our product, and it translates into outstanding results.
Well, we see it every day. Our residents do, no doubt. Well, and maybe let's dig a little deeper into that. So what's an example of some of the internal departments that you have that might service another department, but it doesn't really get to it gets to the end user or residents, but are they embracing how they service, like HR or human resources
right.
would be an example of how they deliver to their internal customers?
You're exactly right. There's internal and external customers. Our procurement department is the same way. Human resources is the same way. Our IT department is the same way. So they will take the same process, identify their customers, internal employees within the city, what is the product, and what are those customer requirements, and they build strategic or operational measures to address all of those areas and are continuing to look for feedback. We survey a lot, whether it's our external customers, our residents, or it's internally, how are we doing? Some of the most important areas that we do is in IT, for example, is system reliability. That our IT system, because we're so dependent upon that, one of the key operational measures is the availability of the system, both the network itself and the telephony portion of that. And because we make it a priority, we're at 99.9% reliability of the system because there are work processes that are built into each and every one of those aspects.
Well, we've only got a little less than a minute in this segment. TNCPE, this Award of Excellence, it's been around for 24 or 5 years. Are we the first city in the state to achieve the highest level?
We absolutely are the first city to receive the Excellence Award. There were 40 applications this year. Not all of them were going for the Level 4 award, which is the Excellence Award, but we're the only government, to the best of my knowledge, local government that has embraced this. However, Governor Haslam sees a value in performance excellence and the Baldrige criteria. And there are several state commissioners who have embraced this and are actually working on a Baldrige trek to try to build that level of excellence within state government.
Well, that's extraordinary. We're going to talk about results here in the next segment. We have to take another short break, but stay with us.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool. To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back once again to Focus on Germantown for our third and final segment with Patrick Lawton. And I could speak with you all day on this topic alone. But you know what? You have defined a lot about TNCPE, our Award of Excellence. Now, in this final segment, let's kind of share what's in it for me. What does it do for our residents? How do they benefit? Give us some examples of why it's important. It's not just another award that sits on a shelf or something that we acquired, but it's something that's important, that's driven by results. Please share some of that with our residents.
That's exactly right, Mayor. And I'll go back to that comparison with our friends in the private sector is that we don't make that monetary profit, but people really look to the city of Germantown to produce what you and I have talked about before. It's the triple bottom line. It's economic, environmental, and social sustainability. That's what city government should be about. And what differentiates the Baldrige criteria and the TNCPE program, I think, from other programs is that it is all based on results. We can do these things all day long, but as I tell my staff, so what? What does it mean? And so I believe we have some charts that show some of the results that we've been working on for the past number of years as we've journeyed down our Baldrige journey. And Germantown has had, again, the profits versus results. We have consistently had one of the lowest crime rates in the state, either number one or number two. This particular chart shows us in comparison with our competition within Shelby County. That doesn't happen by accident. That is all process driven, focused on results and how do we remain that level of excellence. Let's see what the next chart shows. This shows, I believe, the Germantown and Germantown Police and Fire Department's emergency response times. And you were talking about, I believe, Six Sigma on that one. We actually have a number of Six Sigma black belts on staff. And for our viewers who are not sure what a Six Sigma black belt is, it's an individual who's been trained in this discipline, and Six Sigma is all about how do you eliminate deficiencies and ineffectiveness in a process to an nth degree. And just by simply applying that data gathering technique to our Germantown Police Department response times, we were able to drop those to somewhere in the 5-minute range to consistently under 4 minutes, which is incredible. And you can see the competition. The same with the Germantown Fire Department emergency response times. That was a project I mentioned earlier where our athletic club director, a black belt, went over and worked with the fire department to try to improve those response time rates. Again, these are outstanding results. This is what our residents expect. Public safety is one of the primary reasons why our residents choose to live in the city of Germantown. You can live a lot of different places. We offer outstanding service, but when you talk about police and fire and public safety, it's one of those areas that resonates, just like education. We could go on and talk about the outstanding job that our school district is doing in terms of results. That's what attracts people to our community.
Well, let's stick it with public safety on looking at measurements and quality improvement as well and using process. Our fire department this past summer leaped from a level 3 ISO rating, level 10 being the worst on the end of the spectrum, level 1 being the best. We leaped from a 3 to a 1. And that could produce savings for our residents in their homeowners insurance, perhaps. Also, it means a lot of different things, but share with us how we got there. I think the fascinating part is it wasn't just the fire department. They had to work with cross departments to build to that level.
And Marion, you're right, and it was absolutely a conscious effort to move the needle on that, and that was done a lot because of process improvement in a number of areas, both within the fire department in terms of response times and equipment, the city's level investment in that, and then also our water department. We produce our own water within the city of Germantown, and we looked at how could we build greater efficiencies in the production and distribution of water and make sure that when the fire department arrives on the scene that they've got that level of pressure they need to be able to fight the fire. And a lot of planning and deliberate exercise went into that to achieve that. What is the result? As you mentioned, it's a Class 1 rating. We're only one of just a few across the state and across the country. And for our residents, where it hits them in their pocket, in their wallet, it could translate into lower premiums on their property insurance because of that.
Well, again, staying with public safety, our ambulance service is a great example of managed competition. At one time, we outsourced and contracted with the county that actually contracted with a private vendor to supply emergency ambulance service. We brought that in-house. We now have 6 ambulances, and their Baldridge TNCPE type of process work is working on cardiac survival rates. Please share a little bit about how important that is to our residents and why an award doesn't just sit in a trophy case, it's implemented elsewhere in our city.
That's right. The cardiac survival rate is one of our strategic objectives and one of our key performance indicators in the fire department. We talk about public safety. What better measure than that? And we have some of the highest cardiac survival rates in the country. And that just doesn't happen by accident. It's the process of training the personnel. It's the process of making sure that we have the right equipment on the truck. It's the process of communicating with the hospital staff in the emergency room as we are transporting that patient to there. Those are the things that the absolute result is a positive result with cardiac survival rate, but it doesn't happen by accident. That's what I've taught and preached and discussed with our department heads all the time. We're good, but things don't happen by accident. There has to be a process that translates into positive results for our customers to make our product, just like in the private sector, easier to obtain.
We're the only city in the state of Tennessee to achieve the Excellence Award. There are only 3 cities in the country that have ever achieved the Baldridge National Excellence Award. I think Irving, Texas, a couple of communities.
Coral Springs, Florida, and Fort Collins, Colorado, yes.
And we may embark on that journey. We're about to conclude this segment in the show. I would just like to personally thank you for all of your work to get the city to a level of excellence every day. You have taken a lot of responsibility and gotten the team together to be able to understand the Baldridge process. And it's because of your tireless work we're able to accomplish that. So thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank Patrick Lawton for being on the show today. I'd also like to thank you, the viewers, for taking the time to focus on Germantown. If you'd like more information about this show or any of the other shows on Germantown Municipal Television, please visit www.gmtvonline.org. We will see you when Focus on Germantown returns next month.